Welcome to session 4 of the Digitally Inclusive Classrooms programme. Today's session will be looking at tools for communication in the classroom and how this can support you and your learners. Just at the start of this session then, if I could ask you to complete this attendance form, as this is a recorded video, please could you take this opportunity to pause the video and record your attendance at today's session. You can do that either by scanning the QR code there on the screen with your smart device, or typing in the URL at the bottom of the page there, and that will take you through to our attendance recording page. As part of this programme, we've been focusing on a number of success criteria over the 5 weeks and 5 sessions. Today's session, though, will be specifically focusing on developing inclusive communication in the classroom. And we're going to look at a number of tools that are available, again, built in within the Microsoft applications and within the Hub profile and platform that are free to you to use within your classroom. So communication, as we know, plays a huge role in our everyday lives. We need to be able to communicate with our colleagues, with our administrators, with our students, and with their parents. We've got some tools that we're going to show you today that can help support that communication. Now, whether you're trying to improve your public speaking skills, increase your parent engagement, or connect with your second language speakers, Microsoft has the tools and applications that can alleviate some of those worries. First, we're going to look at a tool that is new and can be used for both you and your students. Now, whether you're a teacher presenting a lesson or a student giving a report, Microsoft's belief is that everyone can improve how they present. Training and feedback help people gain confidence and empowers them to speak up. Over the last few years, Microsoft has received feedback from educators and students that they want an easy way to practice their presentations to improve their public speaking abilities. So, based on best practice and academic research, they've integrated common tips and tricks into a tool known as Rehearsal Coach to help students and teachers give more effective presentations. Now, Rehearsal Coach helps students prepare in private to give more effective presentations. It evaluates pacing, use of filler words, and culturally sensitive terms, and it detects when you are simply reading the text on a slide. After each rehearsal, it generates a report that includes statistics and suggestions for improvements. Now, Rehearsal Coach allows you to get support in individually assessing your skills. You can see in the bottom right-hand corner here that not only do the comments and suggestions show up on your screen, but here is the end report that includes suggestions for improvement. So as you're going through, you will get in-the-moment feedback on your presentation skills as you are delivering your presentation. You can see here again in the bottom right-hand corner, it's identifying some of the filler words like you know or basically. And it's also giving you some examples of that. You are just narrating the slide by summarizing the slide's key message. Again, it also now evaluates your pace, and it will tell you whether you're going too slow or too fast as you're going through your presentation. And once you finish, you are given this rehearsal report, which is really useful in helping you to develop those skills. So I'm going to jump across now to PowerPoint and show you how to access that using the desktop version and the online version. So I've just jumped across to this presentation that I'm using today, just to demonstrate to you how this can be used within your classroom and how it can help develop those communication skills. So on Microsoft PowerPoint, across the top then, you've got your different tabs. We're going to jump across to slideshow. And in the desktop version then, you're given a number of different options here. As you can see, the fifth square across, the fifth icon across there is the Rehearse with Coach option. So I'm just going to click on to Rehearse. And what that will then do is it will open up my presentation in something that looks like this. So when you head on to Rehearsing Coach the first time, you'll see in the bottom right-hand corner, you've got here then your welcome, see live feedback as you rehearse, and you can turn that on and off. So if I start rehearsing now, what will happen is it will give me in-the-moment feedback at the bottom of my screen here. So you can see that it's listening to what I'm saying. And if I talk too slowly or too quickly, what it will do is it will help to provide extra feedback as I'm going through. So I'm going to go to the next slide. As I work through the presentation, what it will do is it will work in the background to identify some of those things that we've been focusing on. So for example now, if I take this screen for example, if I just start reading off what it says, presenting in front of others is a vital life skill that teachers are eager to cultivate in their students. You can see here in the bottom right-hand corner that it's giving me some examples of how I'm just reading what's on the screen. Based on best practices and academic research, we've integrated common tips and tips into Rehearsal Coach to help the teachers and students give more effective presentations. So again, you can see that originality is popped up on the right-hand side there. It's also identified that I was speaking too quick at the end, and it's told me to speak a little bit slower as I go through. So as I work through the presentation, this will work in the background, and when I'm finished, I can either pause the session as I'm going through, or if I then skip to the end of the presentation, what it will then do is it will stop for me. As you can see then, I get a very comprehensive report back on how well I presented the information in that session. So you can see here, it's given me a summary of how long it took me to present in total and how many slides that I rehearsed. It's also given me some information on whether I used any filler words in your speech. And while clicking on the Learn More option, it will give you some suggestions from the speaker coach. It's also identified whether I used any repetitive language or whether I used inclusive language as I've gone through. Really, really important. It's identified my pace. Okay, so you can see here that I was reading at 145 words per minute, and that was just right. Gives me a graph then and a breakdown of how many words per minute I was reading as I was going through my presentation. And then one that I really like is in terms of pitch. So it gives you some examples on low pitch variation will make your audience lose interest. Try increasing the tone for your key points. So as you can see, working through the presentation here, my target was at the top, but as I was reading a bit quicker and a bit more in a monotone fashion, that's dipped, and I can see then that progress through the whole session. It also then gives me some ideas around which slides I were reading. So I might be able to go back then and identify which slides that I was reading, and I can make those adjustments or plan to say something different when that slide comes up using the presentation tools in PowerPoint. Now the presentation tools, the click to add tool notes at the bottom here, really, really important when you're creating a PowerPoint. As you can see, under some of my slides here, I've kind of got something that I'm going to say. And when you view in presenter mode, what you will then get is the ability to see your presenter mode like this. So you'll be able to see your slide, what's coming next, and also then the notes that you've made or what you would like to say as part of that presentation. So presenter mode, again, is another really good way of helping children and learners and adults to develop their presentation skills as they move forward. Now this looks exactly the same in the web version of PowerPoint. So I've just taken some of those slides from that presentation. And again, when I go across to slideshow in the web version, I can go to Rehearse with Coach here, and it will provide me exactly the same feedback that I was getting during my reading. So I can click Start Talking, and I can talk about what this is, early solar systems explorations. Okay, you guys, here we go. Let's move on to the next slide. So, you know, Mariner 4 flew by Mars on July 14 and July 15, 1965. The spacecraft performed all programmed activities, you know. So you can see, I'm getting that feedback in the bottom right-hand corner. So I can work through the slides, and again, as I get to the end, I get that feedback through. This time, I've used some fillers, so it's giving me some examples of what I can and can't do. Which again suggested some ideas around inclusiveness, and I've also then got pronunciation and originality. So there's a few more tools available in the online platform. So in terms of developing your pupils' presentation skills, I would definitely recommend them using the Rehearsal Coach to be able to really focus on their intonation, their delivery, their pace as they work through their presentations. So something else that you might want to focus on, particularly in terms of developing an inclusive classroom that allows for all learners to access your communication, is PowerPoint captions. Now, PowerPoint now has a built-in option for closed captioning. You might be thinking, how is this helpful to you as teachers and students? Well, think of that student that may not have identified as having a hearing impairment. However, if the student is seated towards the back of the room, or there is sort of that static chatter around them, on-screen subtitling is super helpful. That student can now follow along easily on the screen. There is also a written transcript, which can be used in many ways. For example, students who are absent, students who may need a braille copy, etc., can take that transcript, they can read through it in their own time, and they still have access to everything that you said during your session. Real-time captioning makes your classroom an all-around more inclusive space. Now, real-time captioning, as well as translation, allows speakers to present their PowerPoint presentations more inclusively. I could be captioning in English, or I could translate it on, or I could turn it on to translate in real time to Spanish or Welsh or any other language that's been listed. So now think about an educator who's presenting to a group of people who don't speak English as a first language. Using translation within PowerPoint captioning allows the attendees to see the English translation on the screen in their native language, creating a more inclusive and engaging environment. With the transcript option that I mentioned above, I can also use Immersive Reader with a transcript to have it read aloud in another language. So even if the entire transcript is in English, a student can add it to any application with Immersive Reader to have it read to them in their home language. So let's have a little look at PowerPoint captions and what that looks like in the PowerPoint tool. So I've come across to my presentation now, and I can see here in the slideshow options on the right-hand side, I've got captions and subtitles. So if I turn on always use subtitles and I drop down into the subtitle settings, what I can then see is a range of options around how the subtitles can be presented when I am presenting my PowerPoint presentation. So for example, at the moment, the input language is spoken language of English, and what I want my subtitle language to be is Welsh. I can then decide where I want that presentation captioning to appear, whether that's bottom, top, below the slide, or above the slide. So I'm going to keep it on bottom overlaid at the moment, and then I'm going to go into presentation mode. As I then enter presentation mode, what we should then begin to see is the Welsh translation of what I'm saying appearing at the bottom of that presentation. So this is really, really useful in terms of supporting learners in your classroom who have got very poor English and need support in accessing what you're saying. This could also be very useful in terms of supporting parents or guardians or carers within your school who don't have English as their first language. They can still access what you're saying by reading through the captions at the bottom of your presentation. Now, a little side note with this, they're not always 100% correct. They do have a little variation in terms of their grammar and their language that they've chosen. However, speaking to colleagues and looking at feedback that has been given already, the accuracy of this tool is really, really positive. So something, again, that you definitely want to consider using within your classroom and also as part of your presentation tools to the wider audience. The next tool we're going to look at, and this is one of my favorite tools available, is the Microsoft Translator app. Now, this app is available on any web-based device. It's also available as an app on a smartphone, iPads and tablets, and it's really, really powerful in what it can do. So I'm going to show you this short video now from Microsoft on what the Microsoft Translator app can do in your classroom.
There is a language barrier inside the walls of our schools, and it's not going away. In fact, the volume of students who arrive in classrooms without the native language in their toolkit is steadily increasing. In the United States, the number of English language learners in the nation's K-12 student population has more than doubled since 1990. When students aren't able to comprehend a new language, it can be difficult to socialize with peers or understand new concepts. Often, these students feel disconnected from their school community. Sometimes, despite a teacher's best efforts to explain something, students with a language barrier still feel lost. With Microsoft Translator, teachers can easily engage students regardless of their language abilities. Teachers simply tap to start a conversation and share the code with their students. Students join the conversation by entering the code into any device with web capability. Then they choose which language they would like to hear or see. As the teacher speaks, Translator provides real-time audio in the chosen language for each student. It also provides a live, real-time transcript of the conversation. Students can hear and read the conversation as it is happening in class. The transcript appears on a student's device in the language of their choice. In fact, Microsoft Translator can translate into multiple languages simultaneously. This live translation allows students to be fully engaged in the topics and social dynamics of the classroom. Translation can be tricky with unique names or subject-specific vocabulary. But with the PowerPoint add-in, Translator reads everything in a teacher's slide deck and slide notes so it can create a more accurate translation.
Translator gives me the opportunity to reach my students in a way I never could before. I love seeing their faces light up when they realize they actually understand the message I'm trying to get across. They can participate in class discussions like never before.
Translation doesn't only accommodate the learning of non-native speakers, it helps other students too. Taking notes in class can be a challenge, but the transcripts provided by Microsoft Translator allow all students to access the conversation after the fact. Microsoft Translator allows students to move from feeling confused to feeling connected with peers and engaged in learning. Translator saves time, provides real-time translation, and keeps students captivated with classroom conversations. Just visit aka.ms/translator.edu to learn more and download the app.
So as you can see from that video, there are a range of options in terms of what Translator can do for you in your classroom. When using Translator in the classroom, there are many options for rolling it out. So here in this image, we have a student with a hearing impairment that is accessing a lesson by watching the captioning and seeing it happen in real time. The teacher is at the front of the class using a microphone or a Bluetooth headset, and the student is able to get real-time captioning in that web browser to access the lesson using Microsoft Translator. Extremely powerful, and again, allowing every learner in your class to access the content that you are presenting. From an inclusive perspective, it can get even more engaging for larger groups of people who speak multiple different languages. In this example here, we have an example of Chinese students accessing an English given presentation using Translator. They are all connected to the presentation using the code given at the beginning of the presentation, something that you would have seen in the video that I've just shown you. In this example, and this is an example that's happening across the world, a teacher is at the front of the classroom giving a presentation. This could be parents' evening, a meeting, or an end of the year presentation. Now think about the second language speakers that you have in your school and how you are engaging the parents of those second language speakers. Often, at times, schools are able to slowly engage new students that might not speak the first language of English, but the parents can sometimes be left out. As educators, we know that when you engage parents in education, student outcomes are much improved. So this teacher or educator at the front has created a conversation in Microsoft Translator and allows the parents to join by a QR code or a join code. Each and every parent can choose their language of choice and be connected to that presentation and engage in their home language. So even if we have 10 different languages represented in one room, everyone can be accessing the same presentation in their home language using the Microsoft Translator. Now, the video that I previously shown has shown you some examples of how to do that, and setting it up is fairly easy. The interface on the Microsoft Translator app is really easy to use with the 4 different options that are available. In this case here, we have a Chinese parent again with their phone, and they're able to speak back to the presenter into the phone, translating what they are saying into English. Microsoft Translator will allow for real-time translation and collaboration with each other from across the room. So for example, you could be speaking in English to a parent who doesn't speak English as their first language. They could then speak into the app in their home language, and that will then translate back across to you in English. The ease of conversation between 2 people with different languages has got so much easier. Here, a great example of that. This parent is communicating with the teacher or the educator using one device in real time. The parent has set their home language, and the administrator and teacher here has set their language as well, and they begin to use real-time translation to communicate back and forth. Parents can even plug in earbuds, so if they can't read the language natively or are not literate in their native language, they can still listen with text-to-speech built in. It's a really great tool for parent-teacher meetings, for any form of communication that you have to have with one of your parents. And in this final example here, you can see just a closer look of what they're doing, using this one device to converse back and forth. So this is something I would encourage you to explore in the Microsoft Translator app when you get the opportunity to do so. So I just want to come towards the end of the session now by providing you with this quote. I'll just read it out to you. I severely underestimated the impact the Translator app would have on district leaders, newcomer students and their parents in one short year, and how it would charge up our plans for family engagement in the upcoming year. So that's from a teacher in San Diego, California. And I want you to think now and consider the teachers and the demographics of all of your schools and how the different languages that you have, and consider the barriers that you have had to communicating with your parents. This app could open up a whole new world to be able to solve a lot of the problems and to be able to support not only your parents with their language development, but also with their well-being, so that they feel that they can communicate with you and that you can communicate with them. So if you'd like to take some time to explore the Microsoft Translator app, it's available with 10 speech languages and 63 text languages. Up to 100 participants can be using this at one time, and most notably, it's a free app available through the link at the bottom of the page here. Now, lots can be said about some of the sessions that we've spoken about over the last couple of weeks in terms of accessibility. And there's a series of videos that Microsoft have put together that focus on inclusion in action. There are 6 short videos here that are available to watch, and I will paste the PowerPoint presentations into the group so you can access these videos and learn a little bit more about how these people have told the Microsoft accessibility story through their own voice, and how they've been impacted by the work that's been done with the inclusive tools and features that Microsoft has to offer. So thank you for taking the time to watch this recorded video this evening, and I hope that you found using some of those tools available to be useful for you in your classroom, particularly the Presentation Coach, the live captioning and the Translator app. If you'd like to take a moment now just to provide a short evaluation on this session, we'd be very grateful. Please just pause this video, and just like the registration, you can scan the QR code or just type that link into your browser. You'll need the course code and the course title as part of your evaluation feedback. So just to finish off the session, I want you to consider what you're going to do next with that information. Think about how that can impact your classroom, who you're going to tell about it, and what you actually are going to do in your classroom and how these could benefit you. If you need any further information around inclusive tools or accessibility using the Microsoft Suite, please do feel free to get in contact. Many thanks for watching. Goodbye.